Let's see, we'll be joining folks here. Good
Hello.
evening, Mariano. How are you?
Good. Good morning.
Morning. What day is it? Okay, the YouTube streaming is up. We are completely full on the Zoom side. Hopefully, some of our folks are able to get in. Okay. So it's 500 on Zoom. Let me look at the YouTube numbers right now. 59 concurrent for now on YouTube, so that's working. Okay. Let's see. Fast and Furious chats everywhere. We're going to try to keep an eye on Keybase mostly. I know there's conversation on YouTube as well, and we'll see what we see here on the chat here. Also, there's Q&A starting, and we'll be starting to answer some of those questions. Everybody's going to ask when exchange, where exchange. I can't give you any information other than we do know that OKX has announced that they will be listing us. I'm not exactly sure on the timing. You should refer to their press release for that. Everybody else is it's not something we can comment on yet. And I'll probably have to say that about every 5 minutes. Somebody's asking when pooling. Mariano, when pooling.
So pooling, we're starting to work on that. Hopefully, it will be done in May at some point. But there's a lot of things that need to be done there, especially with regards to security and decentralization, because these pools will have a lot of cool features that make them better than other pools, especially Bitcoin or Ethereum pools. So
Yeah.
a few weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, well, we're going to specifically have the feature that you can jump between pools after you start. So you can make your plots in advance, knowing that you're going to want to possibly join pools and switch between pools in the future. And at such time when you want to join a pool, you can join a pool. And then if you want to leave the pool, you can leave the pool. And it's really nicely set up so there's very little mutual trust going on. That obviously when you're, as long as you're a member of a pool, you're trusting the pool to give you equitable rewards for that. But you are, with the pool, the protocols we're building, you're not trusting the pool to not lock you out of leaving the pool forever. And the pool is not having to trust you to not just disappear if you happen to win a block. That all of that stuff is enforced on chain.
Will you have to replot for pools?
So for plots that you've made up to today, yes, those don't support pools. For plots that you make in the future, we're actually, even before we have pool protocols ready, our first order of business is making it so that you can plot in a way that's ready for portable pools in the future. And we're going to have that out hopefully by the end of this week. We'll see how that goes. I was just talking to Matt about it right before this call.
Yeah. It is certainly a top priority, that, and then also not too many blockchains have scaled exponentially, so the peer networking code is under a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, this has grown a little faster than we
anticipated. Questions about one of the Chinese pools, I'll talk about that. There is a kind of unoptimal implementation of pooling from a pool that has done a lot of storage related coins in the past. It is 6,000 plus farmers. So when people are concerned, the reality is you've got a whole lot of different people in that pool. We think that with the exponential growth in netspace and the official pooling protocol coming, that this will continue to just be good, happy farmers all over the world. I mean, we really do mean anyone can farm.
Yeah, people need pools a lot less than they think they do. We have a lot of farming rewards per day. And still, if you've got, even at the current net space, if you've got a petabyte, your rewards are plenty smoothed enough as it is. So it's only if you're really, really super tiny that you're getting really material benefits in terms of reducing variance from being in a pool. Now, super tiny can be like 10 terabytes, but we are, but even if you're at that level, it's still kind of sketchy joining that particular pool. Like it's not strong. We have no guarantees that they're not installing malware on people's systems or like remembering everyone's private wallet keys or, and also it looks like it might be possible if you were to hack their software to just, if you did happen to win a block, just keep it for yourself and leave. And also they apparently have some issues around the way that they're checking partials, or if they're even checking partials at all. So that there might be people who are pooling on rigs which don't have low enough latency to their storage to be able to actually make blocks in time when they actually do win a block, but they're still getting credit on that pool for it. So that pool might actually be on top of their fees, just actually getting less rewards than if you were properly pooling yourself because of these people with bad setups who are joining it. So that's all sketchy. People, please don't just reflexively join pools, particularly if you're large. If you're small, I kind of understand. But if you've got more than a petabyte, you have no burning need to be a member of a pool right now.
Switching gears a little bit, Bram, there have been other storage coins before. And, one of the questions we hear a lot is, what's different? And so could you give us some couple high level points about, the differences between, things like Filecoin on one hand and then things like Burst on the other hand?
Oh, okay. So that's kind of two different categories of things that are different. And actually, I'm going to put my headphones on because my computer fan is going, which is probably making my audio sound really horrible here. So,
just a touch muffled, but they're not bad.
Yeah. So that's, yeah, it sounds muffled because it's canceling out all this white noise. So let's see, I'm going to try and fix this here. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, good. Yeah, so there's two kind of categories of answer here. So let's specifically compare to Filecoin and Burstcoin. Okay, so the comparison to Burstcoin, this sounds kind of lame, but if on a consensus level, their shit's just kind of busted is the issue with Burstcoin. The Burst has had a lot of issues with there being different ways of hacking through and getting advantage on the network. And there's been like proprietary software that does it better and blah, blah, blah. It's really sketchy stuff. I find this utterly unsurprising given what I had to go through to make our proof of space algorithms. So first off, to really do this right, you do need to throw VDFs in there. People seem to not be aware of what the proofs of time are, that they think that like the time it takes to generate your plots is proof of time. That's not what proof of time refers to. Like proof of time, proofs of time are made by timelords. When you make a block, it's unfinished, it gets published to the network, and somewhere out there, some mysterious entity somewhere in the universe called a Time Lord infuses it into the blockchain. There are a few fast Time Lords out there right now. And we hope to make more faster ones in the future because that helps with security of the network. But it's funny how little people know about Time Lords at the moment. But having that is a critical part of really making proofs of space work well, which they don't have. And the other thing is the actual underlying proof of space algorithm. I have a story about this one. I gave a talk at Bitcoin Devs in San Francisco. It's on YouTube, where I was talking about think the title was something like removing the waste from Bitcoin, problems with no solutions. So I went over how you have this really horrible problem with waste in Bitcoin, and went over approaches people had suggested for it, and was saying, yeah, they all suck. And at the end of it, kind of, I said, well, you know, if you take proof of space and take some ideas other people came up with, and take some ideas I came up with, and throw them all in a blender, it might work. So as it happened, by total coincidence, Christoph Piachok was sitting in the audience. And so he came up to me after I gave this talk, and he said, I think I know what proof of space algorithm you've come up with, and it's busted. I was like, really? It's like, yeah. So he sent me a link to Hellman time-space trade-offs, what we call Hellman attacks in the context of proofs of space. And sure enough, I had in fact come up with the not completely trivial, but reasonably straightforward proof of space algorithm that everyone comes up with independently when they think about this. And yeah, it's busted in a very interesting way. So I didn't know what to do about this. Hey, Florin. I didn't know about what to do about this. So I moped around about it for a while. This is how mathematicians work. We mope around the house being depressed about how we can't fix our problems. So I moped around about it for a while, and I came up with an idea. I had an idea, a thought. So I went and I explained it to Greg Maxwell next time I ran into him, and he broke it. And then I fixed it, he broke it. This was all in one conversation. We went back and forth a few times, and he broke the last thing I said. I'm like, okay, I'll think about it some more. And so then I thought about it some more, and I came up with some better ideas. And then I spoke to Greg again, and he broke it, and went back and forth and broke it. And I go, okay, I'll think about it some more. And so then ran into Greg a third time, and I told him the thing I'd come up with. And he said, I can't break that. I'm not saying it's secure. I'm just saying I can't break it. So I then mailed Christoph about this. And he broke it. And so then I iterated, I sent him another thing, and he broke it. And then I iterated, and I came up with another thing and sent that to him, and he couldn't break it anymore. So he's like, you know what? I'm just going to prove that this whole approach can't possibly work. And so he went about, him and spacing on the name, went over this and tried to really do like formal analysis of it. And it turned out they couldn't break it anymore because it's not breakable. They actually found a proof of some level of security that it has. Yeah, so that was the subject of the AsiaCrypt paper that we wrote called Beyond Hellman. We have a few papers that we published here. One of them actually got best paper at Eurocrypt, which is actually for construction we're not actually using, but it is a very cute construction.
Let me interrupt you 1 second. T-minus 15 minutes to first transaction.
Oh, okay.
And also our team is trying to sneak into our panel, so apologies for everybody not being on, but we're trying to get folks in as we can. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to add one thing. That talk is seminal because it's where you created the cowcoin lingo.
Oh, yeah. Yes, proof of stake. It's a cow.
Proof of stake.
Yeah.
Better with Cabernet.
Yes. Also, I believe that's the one where I performed the revolution will not be monetized. That's the story of our proof of space algorithm, or part of it. Actually, that's the story of iteration 1 of our proof of space algorithm. We're doing iteration, I think, like 7. And there's a whole long story about implementing it. Very deep math all over the place there. Anyhow, point being, getting proofs of space right is hard. If you're doing proofs of work, as long as there's something cryptographic somewhere in there, you can basically mush together any random bullshit, and it will, in fact, be a functional proof of work. You can't do that for proof of space. Proof of space is really, really hard to get right. It's really hard. You need VDFs. You need to get VDFs working. You need proofs of space. You need to get proofs of space working, and you need to stitch them together in a way that actually works, which I spent most of last year on iterating on our notions around that as well. So I will stop telling stories about all this stuff now and just give the summary of, we actually have not busted underlying consensus things. We also differentiate not just from that coin, but almost all the other coins by having this much, much better on-chain programming environment, which has been this whole orthogonal project that we've been working on this whole entire time, and have all kinds of great stuff there. If we compare to something like Filecoin, Filecoin uses nowhere near as good in some sense of a proof of space algorithm, but the one that they're using is catalytic. Actually, in some ways, it's a little hard to critique Filecoin because they have this whole Baroque system that I'm not sure where the emphasis is, because they have both proof of space and proof of stake at the same time for some reason. I'm not sure how that all fits together. But the thing that they have is catalytic. So in principle, you can actually kind of use the space that you're doing proofs of space on, and they have this whole idea of that people will pay for storage to the network, which is being catalytically used for all this proof of space. Everyone, please stop trying to reconstruct Mojo Nation. Like, I worked on Mojo Nation literally over 2 decades ago now, and I can tell you from having worked on Mojo Nation, which was a cryptocurrency project, which was a little ahead of its time because mining hadn't been invented yet. So that was kind of a problem. It had a lot of other problems as well, but sort of like almost everything in cryptocurrency can be directly traced back to Mojo Nation, and other projects that came before it as well. But Mojo Nation had this whole idea of this archival service or storage service that the network would provide. The problem is that's an inherently sketch service. Like, when people store things, they want it to be around for a while, and you just have this systemic technology risk that the whole technology stack might be abandoned in a couple of years, and storing more copies of stuff doesn't help with that. And the world is just not interested in paying for the service of a service that's that level of sketch, just in general. So the advantages that our proof of space algorithm has is like ludicrously low resource utilization when you're actually farming, like none. And then also it's not malleable. So anyone can just plot and start farming with no interactions with the network or anybody, just go, which these other things don't have as a feature. So our proof of space is really amazing. It's a huge outlier in terms of how good it is in all kinds of ways, although it's not catalytic. So that's the thing you lose out on. I believe that answered that was my very long-winded way of answering that question.
Absolutely. Switching to something that's a bit more time sensitive. Can we talk about transaction fees? What are minimum transaction fees? Will we have dust problems? All these questions around fees. What should we select fees? Those kinds of things.
I'm not sure what our min fee is set to at the moment.
Mariano may know.
Yeah. So the minimum fee is currently 0, which means that if people are not sending a lot of transactions, you should be able to get your transaction in without paying any fees. However, that doesn't mean that you can just send infinite transactions, because there is a block size. So if the blocks are full, then you're going to need to pay a fee to actually get your transaction included in the blockchain. So if you try to make a transaction with insufficient fee, it will tell you this is not enough. You'll have to pay an additional fee.
Yes.
But we're not expecting anything significant like Bitcoin or Ethereum. If you do have to pay fees, they're going to be very small.
So people, please don't spam the network. We know you can spam the network. Haha, it's not really proving anything. So please don't do it. You're just being a jerk.
T-minus 9 minutes. Let's see. Bram, why are Time Lords not incentivized?
Not what?
Not incentivized.
Oh, because they're inherently very centralized, right? Like, the fastest Time Lord is whoever is the absolute fastest on the network as a whole. And that will be one just one person, and it will be the same person every single time. They will have the fastest setup. So if you try and incentivize time lording, that's a tremendous force for centralization. So the best you can do there is kind of make it neutral and make it kind of like running a full node, right? That you're doing some service to the network as a whole. It's a service which can't really harm anything. All it can really do is help. And you don't make anything for it, but it doesn't hurt you too much to do it. Although obviously running a time lord is much more expensive than running a full node is.
A couple questions that are basically, is so-and-so an official representative of Chia network? The answer is almost always it is not an official representative of Chia network. Anyone who claims as such will be a surprise to me. I will tell you that the only person I know who has a Chia trademark license at this exact moment is ChiaExplorer.com. Thanks, Mitch. And thanks, Freddie. We will be staffing that department up shortly to get all of y'all the trademark licenses you need to use Chia.
Yeah.
One thing we've been telling people, and I want to make sure it's clear, if you're going to launch a pool, we do not want the first word of your pool name to be Chia. You can be the seedling pool, a Chia pool. That's fine with us. But chiapool.com, the Chia pool, we don't want to have confusion about an authorized pool.
Yeah, we're being defensive of our trademark, not because we don't want to be inclusive. We most definitely want a broad, inclusive community. We just don't want a Bitcoin Cash kind of situation here. We don't want any confusion about what is Chia.
And we'd like to keep pools competitive and wide and interesting and for, there for different reasons, and not somebody kind of going, hey, we're the one pool. That's
there most definitely will not be a single official pool. Just no.
So I'm going to ask this question because I think it is important to understand why it's incorrect. The question is, with this much netspace growth, will K32 be discarded sooner than expected?
No.
Can you explain why?
Yeah. The reason to discard K32 is not if it does not have to do with netspace growth. It has to do with at what point. Well, there are two reasons why it might happen. Number one, it could be that someone has like a single drive that's so gigantic that actually even doing the lookups is becoming problematic on that media. And we're nowhere near that right now. I mean, people have a lot of space, but that a lot of space is actually on a lot of drives. And so doing all the seeks necessary for filling the whole thing up with K32s is not being a problem. The other reason would be if it becomes feasible to replot K32s so fast that you can reasonably attack the network, you can gain unfair advantage by replotting a zillion times in response to challenges and fake having space that way. And you're actually just replotting instead of having space. We are probably quite a few orders of magnitude off from that being a viable attack on the network. So K32s are just going to stay supported for the time being, if not forever, is entirely plausible. And the things that would poke it out have to do with technology advances in computation and individual hard drive size, not having to do with with how big our net space is. Although actually, even if you do have a very large drive, you of course have the option to use more than a K32. That wouldn't really be a strong incentive for us to get rid of support for K32. It's really just an incentive for you who has this drive to use something bigger than a K32.
So T-minus 4 minutes. Bram, we get a lot of questions that kind of go around the line of, can't you do something to stop the bigger farmers so us little farmers can compete? Can you talk about both the technology reasons why that's not necessarily something we can do?
Yeah. So when you're farming, you're getting rewarded in proportion to what you're doing on the network. If we could have rewards on the network that were entirely based off of human brains, that were done completely catalytically on what human brains can do, even not smart human brains, and just make it so that this becomes just payments that every human on Earth gets completely equally in exchange for help participating in making the network secure. we would totally do that. However, proofs of something that have that structure do not, as far as I am aware, exist. So we're going with something that is a minuscule step in that direction, which has the benefit that you can actually do it, which is proofs of space. So you get rewarded in proportion to the amount of space that you have. That's the way it goes. Now, what the advantages of what we have is if you happen to have space lying around, the costs of farming off of that from a marginal standpoint are almost nothing. So you do get to participate. Anyway, we anticipate, we'll find out maybe later today how much Chia coins cost. So we'll get data on this, but we anticipate at some point in the not too distant future, it will become economically not a good idea to buy storage just for the sake of farming off of it. That's part of the plan that's expected. This like whole messing up the storage market wasn't exactly part of our plan. This has taken off faster than we expected. But the thing that we are going to improve is we are going to push out a pooling protocol, because netspace has grown so quickly that even people with pretty decent amounts of space that they're contributing have very high variance in their rewards. It's very important to note that you still have high expected value, right? Like playing the lottery is low expected value, not because the rewards happen infrequently, but because the product of how often they happen and how big they are is less than the costs of putting into the thing. So if you're small in Chia, you can still have positive expected value, but if the variance is too high, it almost doesn't matter, because in practical terms, you're not really getting that much of a reward. Of course, maybe you want a lottery ticket. It's kind of cool, right? People like playing the lottery. But we are going to be releasing pool protocols very soon. We are working on that.
It is 9:59, and the first block for transactions can happen any moment now. Justin, how's the introducer and mega nodes doing? You're muted.
I was just looking at those. They seem to be nominal. Traffic has spiked, as we probably would expect.
Zoom is feeling the pain, or pardon me, Keybase is feeling the pain. We did reach out to the Keybase founders to make sure that it would make it, and they think it will. So.
Justin is not Seth Rogen, just FYI.
Yeah.
As much as I'd like to be. It looks like we're up about 15% traffic globally. I expect that to go up another probably 15-20% in the next hour.
For those who are wondering, we currently use an inferior way to get you new nodes that we're planning to replace. Florin is actually working on that as we speak, and we're running it beta in-house. We're basically going to implement the same method that Bitcoin uses to get you an initial set of nodes. But for right now, we have to scale it up to be able to try to get you guys a chance to start syncing.
The internet continues to be plagued by the switch to IPv6 not actually happening.
Yes. If we could kill NAT, I would. Okay. Mariano, are you monitoring?
Yes, I'm monitoring. I don't see any blocks yet. In transaction blocks.
We're on 22.5.689.
We have tested this on testnet, but
yes, we have.
there ain't nothing like the real thing.
No.
Is our mempool logic set to like reject things from the mempool until it hits the right height and then start accepting them?
Oh, I'm seeing some blocks with transactions now.
Great.
Oh, you are. We
Sweet.
have a block with
Unfinished
transactions.
blocks.
Yep, we're seeing transactions in mempool.
Unfinished blocks with transactions. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. That's good.
Okay. Questions about exchanges and the pre-farm. The pre-farm is going nowhere real soon. At some point in the next couple weeks, we might start loaning to market makers and exchanges, but we're not going to do that until there's depth, and those loans will be small comparative to what is available to trade, which is the Farmer 1 coins, and are payable in Chia, and interest is payable in Chia only. at some point in the next few weeks as well, we are likely to move the pre-farm into our interim custody and control infrastructure. But for right now, it sits where it sits in block 1. Okay, transactions are running. The Time Lord's happy.
For those of you with cold wallets, you can probably, instead of trying to like validate your transactions or whatever, you can look at the blockchain explorer and see if your transaction went through to the wallet you intended it to. It's a nice way to check to make sure your things are working the way you expect it to before you send like, your entire dragon's hoard of Chia.
There are also people have questions, how do you secure your keys? What are you going to do in the future? Or do I have hardware support? If you're on Mac or Windows, your keys are secured by your OS key rings, and those are actually quite good. Just have a decent password for your OS. On Linux, I warn everyone that the current situation is substandard, and we know, and we're going to fix it as part of what we're going to be doing with hardware wallets. BLS signatures is a new signature scheme. It's an IETF standard. We are really the first people to put it heavily into production. The Nano X has been quoted as being available late summer for our types of keys. And so we will certainly be supporting the Nano X and anyone else who supports BLS signatures in what's called G2.
Okay, first block with transactions is mined
Cool.
Farmed.
in the blockchain.
Can we get
Farm.
Can we get the, in vernacular as we often use it, farming is sort of a type of mining. So, but yeah, definitely farmed.
There are 5.34 Chia worth of fees in the first transaction block.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
Please don't do that.
That's a lot of fees.
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
I suspect that was someone trying to get the first block and they didn't care what they spent.
Oh, okay, that could be.
I think John Michael was trying to do that.
Okay, it's worth an amount of money that is a little potentially cringeworthy. But congratulations on that person for getting the first transaction through. And
Mempool looks like it's full already.
it does. Huh.
Yep.
Interesting. I wonder, somebody must be.
Raise your
spamming
hand
it.
if you're shocked.
Yeah, somebody must be spamming it. We might have to start putting in min fees pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, loads seem to be fine, though. I'm running about 1,000 peers on this iMac. So while I'm running the Zoom, you've got 1,000 people connected to this computer as well. Transactions, mempool, up a little bit because of the live stream. Somebody bought an expensive pizza in the first block. Let's just say it that way. Chia.pizza is a thing. Feel free to check it out. Transaction fees go to the farmer who farmed the block in question. You get that plus an eighth of the entire reward in the standard pooling protocol. For everybody who has self-pooled, that's exactly how it works. However, we get the pool part as well. So you'll get 1/8 and 7/8.
It's just a bad idea to run a pool where when you actually get a block, the entirety goes to the pool instead of a significant chunk going to the farmer, because otherwise pools can profitably join other pools, collect partials, and screw them by throwing out blocks that actually happen because they reduce overall work difficulty enough to be worth it to them to do that. On top of, potentially being able to run competitors out of business. So in the interest of making that not happen, you should always have some non-trivial fraction of block reward go to farmers. So we just baked into the protocol that the farmer automatically gets 1/8 of the block reward plus all of the transaction fees, because that's eminently reasonable.
Welcome to more on the Europe team. Thanks for sneaking in.
Yeah, hi everyone.
We're seeing compressed blocks getting confirmed now as well.
That's beautiful. Bram, can you tell us about compressed blocks?
Oh, yeah. So rather than cramming a whole bunch of preset functionality into how our transactions work, like Bitcoin is having to do, we are actually supporting Taproot and Graftroot in our standard format transaction out of the gate. You notice that that is standard format transaction. That is actually a layer 2 thing that is written in Chialisp. In order to make it so that so that you don't have to repeat the exact same code over and over and over again for every single transaction, when you're doing standard format transactions, we added in compression ability. So it's possible to, in a block, say, okay, well, here's a string that repeats throughout this whole block, and I'm just going to reuse it when I'm generating this block. And on top of that, you can even refer to older blocks. So if there's a block that has a code snippet in it, later blocks can refer to that code snippet and use that to compress their own transactions as well. It's a deep rabbit hole of improving this. We have a rudimentary version of it in right now, and I'm sure there will be lots more improvements to this happening in the future.
Also to note, we have some additional both bug fixes and performance improvements that we found after we released 1.1.3. We have them kind of queued up in case things are difficult, but it looks like right now we're going to be basically okay. I will predict that if you are not on 1.1.3 and you're running, for example, a Pi, you will fall behind. So you will probably want to be upgraded. We have enough performance improvements that if you're seeing issues still with 1.3, 1.1.4 will be out this week and will be even more performant. And look, thanks to the entire team, they've been everybody's been working really hard the last week to make sure that this was going to be as smooth as so far it has been. From the questions, congratulations for making history, guys. Thank you.
This feels weirdly smooth. Like we're literally not doing anything right now. We didn't hit a button. We did nothing. Like when we at least launched, when we at least started farming in the first place, we had to press a button to get farming started to release the Genesis challenge.
I was about 60 seconds late.
Yeah. And here we literally, it was on a timer. Our big release, our crunch mode for launch, that was like over a week ago when we pushed out the release to make this happen. So we had an earlier version of our software that was set to just stop working on a certain date and start screaming bloody murder that it needed to be upgraded at a date before that. So our deadline was actually getting the final release out that supported transactions before the old version started screaming bloody murder that it needed to be upgraded. So that was a week ago and we hit it. So now we're just kind of sitting here watching the network like everybody else, crossing our fingers that nothing horrible happens.
We definitely planned for today either to be a mad scramble or celebration. I think we're getting the latter.
It feels like there should be some ceremony. Should I like blow on my shofar or something?
Sure. Where's the drum? We're missing the audio.
I have my drum here. The shofar feels more ceremonial than the drum does.
A question somebody said, is it wasteful that we're giving out the rewards in 2 transactions? It's not really in 2 transactions, so it's not really wasteful. Coinbase rewards basically kind of appear in the next transaction block they come into. It's also a little detail, but sometimes you'll be confused by you want a block, but it doesn't show up in the rewards for a couple blocks. And that is that the rewards only can show up at the transaction blocks. So if you want a non-transaction block, your rewards will be in the next transaction block. It's going to be asked again and again, but it is worth repeating. Should we use pools? Do we have to replot?
We prefer you don't use pools unless you're small enough that it makes a difference for you, which is actually, you have to be pretty small for it to really make sense to use pools, but our net space has been growing very fast. So it makes sense for more people than we expected at this time. So if you're big enough, don't use a pool. We made there be like over 4,000 reward events per day, which can smooth out a lot. So even if you're like 1/4000th of all net space, you're still going to get on average 1 reward today, which over the course of like a month is going to have plenty enough smoothing in it that you should be fine. But if you really are small, then it does make sense to use a pool. What we are recommending right now is that you, for plots that you're making today, just make them to yourself. When we release the ability to plot to a singleton, which will probably be later this week, you can start doing that. You can start plotting to those. And that will be in preparation for joining pools. So all plots that you make that use that will be able to join pools once our pool protocols are out, which might be next week or the week after or something like that. Let's clear on how quickly we'll be able to get that out. But we have pretty clear line of sight to making it so that at least the plotting with pool support will be done very soon.
Let's see. Is Chia Network hiring? The answer is yes. There's a jobs career page on chia.net. We're going to be hiring a little bit like mad. It is time to scale up. Define small farmer.
Okay, so small farmer would be, so let's say less than 1/5,000th. Well, really small. Let's say, just for round numbers, let's say less than around 1/10,000th of all net space is kind of a small farmer. So right now there's, oh man, it's closer to 2 exabytes on the network right now. It's been growing rather fast. So you have to project out a bit, but at the moment, 1/10,000th of that would be, let's see, 200 terabytes or so. So probably, so right now a small farmer would be less than 200 terabytes. In a couple weeks, a small farmer might actually be less than a petabyte.
Also, it's important for everyone to know that we're in an adoption phase right now. If you extrapolate out the current exponential growth of NetSpace, we would end up using every single piece of storage that exists in the universe within about 60 days. That's not going to happen. So in about the 7 to 12 exabytes range, we're going to hit the S curve. If you know about adoption curves, the S curve is that we slow down and start to like linear or less from there. The big open question is somewhat related to price. There are a lot of, institutions and companies that have stranded storage that don't know about Chia yet. And so they will be likely people who will come on and plot. And that's really the mechanism that's going to hold profitability for farming down. You're going to be competing with people who already bought the storage. It's going to be running anyway. And so they're going to be able to plot. I expect we will find some sort of better equilibrium in the next 60 or 90 days. But at the same time, coin price can create irrational markets at times. We are actively engaged with all the storage providers to make sure that they're trying to do what they can to make sure we all have storage and that we're not going to continue to be a shock to the system. Bram, could you talk a little bit about how plotting to a smart coin is going to work and kind of what you can do with it?
So the plotting to the smart coin, the way it's going to work is that your wallet will you're going to set up your singleton in a wallet that's designed for this. And it will tell you what the puzzle hash has to be. And so then you tell your your plotters what the puzzle hash that you need to plot to is. So usually what people have been doing thus far is they've been giving a pool public key. But with this format, you give a pool puzzle hash. And so you will have a wallet that you have set up for handling pooling rewards. And that will tell you what public key to plot to. And then you can go ahead and start plotting to that public key. And then you'll be able to claim those directly until such time as you decide to join a pool, at which point the pool will be collecting them for you and giving you credit for partials. And then you can leave the pool if you so choose.
Let's see. So Bram, are there any places where ASICs could change the dynamics of our protocol?
Well, I mean, there are these ASICs known as SSDs. I mean, like, there's some chance that SSDs will, in a few years, become lower in price per byte than HDs are. So that would be pretty interesting. Not really change the dynamics of our network in any meaningful way, but make it so that things are having to use less power and take less wear when they're just sitting there farming, which would be great. The only place where ASICs really come to mind, because it is so, perfectly designed to work just off of storage and nothing else, is on the VDFs, on the Time Lords. So those can most definitely be sped up with hardware. And we are going to be putting real budget into getting VDF hardware that runs as fast as we can possibly get it, and make this available to the general public so that people who want to help secure the network can, at a totally reasonable budget, purchase this hardware and run it as overclocked as they dare and help secure the network as a whole.
So we're seeing some people comment that they've lost sync in their farms. This was why we put out 1.13. We believe that 1.13 will be able to keep you in sync. But we also have some performance improvements above and beyond that if it continues to be a problem. So for those of you who lost sync, there's certainly a bit of a storm at first of transactions that is kind of directly relevant to whether you can keep up. But 1.1.3 should be able to keep up. You may need to upgrade. So Bram, kind of a newbie question, but I think it's important. Can we use our plots for something different or, quote, useful? And then, like, what's in our plots?
Wait, what? No, the proofs of space are done. Plot files are not useful in some sense. I mean, they're useful because you can farm off of them and help secure the network, but they're not useful for anything else. They're full of cryptographic garbage. But the thing that is useful is you can always just delete them and use the space. It's not hurting the physical hardware in any way.
The other questions were about, are we going to be speeding up the plotter? And the answer is yes. We have intentionally focused the team not on that right now after we made some very nice last-minute improvements. Thank you, Slava, for those. We will be coming back to it. We also will be looking into whether parts of it could be accelerated either in hardware or other places. Plotting ultimately isn't the gating factor. Storage is going to be your gating factor. I actually think a lot of people have this mismeasured in their head. When you have a very fast plotter, what it does is fill up the storage you can't buy really quickly. I think we mocked Freddy and Chia Explorer offline.
Oh, man.
Poor Freddy.
So there are... So there are, I'm not sure how to read price signals, because there are these Chia IOU markets which are a little more than a little bit sketchy and have some price signal to them. And I don't know if they are now automatically converting over to real Chia markets or if they're still IOU-ish or what's going on here. I'm not going to start feeling confident in these things until they start like all converging to the same price.
Lots of questions about how to see transactions. If you have log level info set, you can actually watch the transaction bundles go by. Hopefully Chia Explorer will be back here in a moment. Again, sorry, Freddie.
There are things like CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko have us listed in our pooling price data. I don't know where they're pulling it from, but I would say that an aggregated source like that is probably more accurate than an individual exchange right now.
Yeah, the problem is that the aggregated sources are getting different prices from different exchanges.
Yeah.
So that's that. If there is no counterparty risk, that shouldn't be happening. So Until they all converge to the same price, the market doesn't really trust these numbers very much.
Right. We think it's going to take a couple days for these markets to converge and get deep and rich. Again, you can assume we've spoken to most every exchange on the planet. You can also assume that I can't say anything about it at all. What I can say is that OKEX, I believe that's how they like to be said, have listed us and have integrated to us and are available, I believe. I know that Mariano in the background here has been doing a little support for them. Thanks, Mariano. I can tell you that both Coinbase and Bitstamp have name stamped us, but that's all I can say. Name checked us, I should say. So price will be discovered here during the week. There are only 400,000 or 500,000 coins available, but there are about 12,000 unique farmers with those coins, and that was exactly what we were looking for, maybe a little better than what we were looking for. People have a lot of questions, what did you guys expect? We're moving faster than we expected. It's really wonderful to watch the virality and the exponential growth here, guys and gals. Why did we choose Lisp for Chialisp?
So at the risk of going on another extended tirade, there are these two different approaches to on-chain programming taken by Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Bitcoin is based in the UTXO model, which is very limited in its functionality, but very auditable and nailed down and clear in its behavior, kind of confidence inspiring. And then there's Solidity, which is programming your money in JavaScript, literally, and is very not confidence inspiring and problematic in the way it goes about doing things. But in principle, is much more powerful in terms of the things that it can do. So it's gotten a bunch of development happening in it for those reasons. But it has side effects all over the place and tends to brick things as a result of them. It's a very dangerous way of programming. So really what you want to have happen is you want there to be as few side effects as possible when you're programming money. You want to be working in a way that's very, very confidence inspiring. And on top of that, in very specific terms, I figured out this one weird trick, which actually makes it possible to have basically all of the types of functionality that you get in Solidity while working within the UTXO model, what we're calling the coin set model, where you just have a bunch of coins, and then every transaction that happens, every block that happens, all it can really do is spend a bunch of coins and create others. This has great scaling properties because you don't need to keep all this data sitting around all the time. It just sort of appears and disappears while you're validating transactions, and otherwise you don't have to worry about it. Everything is very, very nailed down and clear in what it can do, and also allows you to do things like make all the transactions that happen within a block happen simultaneously, which creates some really nice safeguards against miner extracted value, all kinds of really good stuff here. In order to make this work properly, it turns out you need to be able to sandbox programs. Like if you have colored coins, the actual inner puzzles, the potentially colored smart coins that you're doing need to be run in a sandbox so they can't reach outside of themselves and just magically change the amount of colored coin that they're worth. The best way of doing that is to use a language that has no side effects whatsoever, so things can't read, so everything is automatically sandboxed. That's kind of the high level reasons for using Lisp. It's also, as part of this whole scheme, it's important to have a language that can reason about itself and talk about its own code snippets, and also a language that's extremely simple and easy to implement. And so all of that was a really, really good fit for Lisp for the on-chain programming environment that we have.
So I'm going to answer a couple questions together. It looks like Digifinix has listed us. That is reported to me, so you need to check it out on your own. Caveat emptor with all this stuff, folks. A couple questions. How many rewards per day are there? How did you choose the reward schedule? There are 4,608 blocks on average found each day. Of late, we're closer to 5,000 blocks because of the very strong ramp of new netspace. Each one of those blocks rewards 2 Chia to the winner. What we basically did is we said we're going to take 21 million coins and give that to the company as its strategic reserve, and we'll give 21 million coins to the farmers pretty darn quickly. 42% of all coins are in farmer hands in 6 years. Ultimately, we expect that that number is much higher, as after we're able to, aka after we're able to list the public company's equity, we hope to dividend coins to shareholders. So much of that strategic reserve will be a reward for people who have invested to date and will invest in the future.
For those who aren't staring at the markets, the prices that are being shown are currently in the neighborhood of around $1,200 per Chia. We cannot vouch for that in any way. We have no control of this whatsoever. Many people are looking at going, wait, that can't possibly be. We have a number of different methodologies for looking at it that indicate that's actually entirely possible. But we'll see how price settles down.
Yeah, we're still not Doge.
And while it would be cool, everybody keeps talking about Elon Musk. While it would be cool to get a name shout, but I think that would probably kill our poor servers.
Please don't hurt Justin. Show us on the internet where they touched you, Justin.
48444.
Yes, we aspire to one day have a higher market cap than Doge.
One day.
Just an update on global traffic. We're up like 48% globally right now on nodes and introducers. That's, again, way ahead of my expectations. So thanks, guys.
What day is it? What expectation have you blown away yet?
Yeah.
Traffic was doubling out of Asia about every 2-3 hours for a few days last week. It was pretty wild. I believe Gatio is also listing us. Again, no idea of quality or caliber, any of that, but information for those who are interested. Let's see. We answered the ASIC miner question, just running through the questions. One of the questions is diamond hands. That's all it is. Question about, should K32s ever need to be retired? What would that process look like?
People are worrying about this way too much. This is years away from happening, if ever. So because it's so far out in the future, this is all very speculative. Probably what it would look like is someone, if I'm not dead yet, probably me. I'm watching over this network for the next 50, 60 years. And then it's after my shift. At some point, you get to retire.
Bram and I joke that people will hate us in 200 years for decisions we made in the last couple months.
Oh, it's not a joke. I'm sure they're going to hate us. Anyway, man, if a legal scholar from today could go back in time and sit down at the U.S. Constitutional Convention and just say, hey, guys, here's a few things you might want to clarify in there. It'll really make things a lot easier going forward. No, so what was the question again?
What was the question again?
K32s and their lifetime.
Oh, K32s. Yes.
I will apologize to everyone. We've all been running 24/7 for a while. So
yeah. It's it's still a little early in the morning for me. So if I'm not dead yet, I'll probably be the one who speaks for it. But there will be a proposal to retire K32s. There will be community discussion. If there is a sense that there is overwhelming community support for it, there will be a soft fork, which will probably be something along the lines of it will be decided at this time, either by this timestamp or this block height. At this point, K32 will no longer be supported, and that will be a straightforward soft fork. everyone will go ahead, full node software, wallet software, exchange software will all update their validation code to not accept K32s past the specified height. And then when that height is reached, then magically no more K32s will be showing up, and there will be some amount of disruption with netspace dropping a bit right then because all the K32s will have been bricked and some number of things will have not successfully upgraded. And so that will cause some amount of disruption. Hopefully both of those will be relatively small. But this is all years in the future and completely speculative whether it'll ever happen at all, and total guesswork, and most likely like 100, 200 years from now, someone is going to take a clip of what I just said and meme it and make fun of me, and I'm sorry.
We are reviewing stats, and there are many stats that are looking very good right now. Many on the team slaved very hard to make this work the way it's working. So congrats, everybody.
Yeah, highly recommended everybody upgrade to our latest version. We're still doing enough enhancements very fast that it's pretty reasonable to just upgrade to every version as soon as it comes out.
There's two questions that spurs in the community. Will we allow pausing and resuming plots? And can we do in-farming upgrades? The answer to the first is yes, but not yet. The second one is yes, but not yet. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah. So we've the reason we don't have resuming yet is we keep coming up with these pretty substantial improvements to the time it takes to finish a plot, and those are more important than resuming is. So those have been coming out first. At some point, we'll have hit a level where both the scale of plot improvements happening are small enough and our staffing issues are no longer quite so dire that we can actually have somebody implement resuming in a reasonable way, at which point we will go ahead and do that.
And I also believe we may get a PR on some resuming as well, so we will certainly accept those PRs. We, as I said earlier, are not really focused on plotting right this second because we have to get pooling done, and pooling is so super critical for everyone. Also, some of the custody elements that we need to get completed in the next couple days are important as well. For those of you who've been here a while, you have seen that we tend to promise about on time and deliver about on time, and that's because we keep things pretty darn focused on what we need to get done. Right now, we are focused on node performance, node connectivity. Obviously, this is a big strain right this minute, so we are learning minute to minute about that, and pooling. And those three are critical to network safety and health, and that's first. The plotter's pretty good. People should be aware that the plotter's not likely to get twice as fast. It might get 20% faster from here, and it might get 10% smaller from here, but it's not likely to have the radical kinds of changes you've seen since beta 14.
But Hadoop might improve quite a bit as a result of our work on our plotter.
People always want to know, will a GPU somehow help them?
No.
Question was, what minimum amount of network connectivity do you need to keep your full node synced? Who wants to take it? Okay, I'll do it. A megabit should be enough. It's actually not the network that's your problem. It's the amount of connections and your CPU that you're running your farmer on. Right now, with the mad volume, as I see it go flying by, new transaction from here, your machine is trying to validate a lot of stuff. We are going to make that lighter weight in even the next release, but that's the thing. To the extent you're having a hard time keeping up, even on 113, lower your target pure node count from either 60 or 80 down to like 30 or 40. That will help you a lot and still keep you connected and safely farming. Again, little farmers want us to try to limit plots, and the answer is, well, this one is, can't you limit it by IP address? And it's really funny because Satoshi himself said that IP address won't work for these kinds of things.
Yeah, there's literally a line in the Bitcoin white paper that says one IP, one vote doesn't work, but maybe one CPU, one vote can work. And it hasn't panned out that way.
Satoshi got close.
Yeah. So that was Satoshi's vision.
Bram's here to improve it a touch.
Yeah. This whole project is very in line with the Bitcoin experiment. This is very much just carrying on in the Bitcoin direction.
For you Python experts on the call, how secure is our open port 8444 for, in farmers?
I can answer that one. So it should be very secure because each message is serialized with a very specific format. So you can't send any actual malicious messages. They'll be rejected instantly if they don't conform to the protocol. That said, the safest way to secure funds is to have a key in a different offline computer and send your funds to an offline key, as opposed to keeping them in the key that is in the computer that is farming.
Yeah, there's probably a greater risk that you get malware on your computer from some other attack vector than from our software. Like servers written in Python tend to not get hacked very much because you just don't have overflow errors like you do in C. It's just really, really hard, even if you're trying to have memory corruption in Python.
So there's always a lot of small farmers thinking that it must be big institutional farmers that are driving the netspace. I want to take this question. It's not. It's millions of people just like you bringing 100 terabytes online. That's what everybody's competing with. Our whales are joking that they're now shrimps. And, all of the professionals who are trying to bring real money to this, the netspace runs away from them too. It is not easy to keep up right now because we're in an adoption phase. We will get to past that adoption phase soon. What's the fastest plotting speed we've seen for K32? Justin, that's a good one for you.
Yeah, as far as I know, the world record is like 17,000 seconds. It might be down to like 16 now.
So I know of one whale that's going to get closer to 10,000.
Okay. That is an extreme edge case. That hardware is super, super specialized, and that guy's been doing it for probably 2 years.
He's probably one of our oldest farmers. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. On the algorithmic side, if anyone has an idea of how to multi-thread bucket sort effectively, you can probably speed things up that way.
Yes.
There continue to be lots of little corners of the plotting process that have really interesting algorithmic things in them that can be improved on.
There are lots of people about why it's not multi-threaded, and the answer is it could be, but it's not exactly the easiest task.
The reason we have non-multi-threaded sorting in there is because the non-multi-threaded sorting is kicking the ass of the general purpose off-the-shelf multi-threaded supporting in the libraries that do sorting.
Let's see. Bram, why did we choose K32 as a minimum size, and could we choose a smaller plot size?
We chose K32 being pretty conservative. There's this trade-off between how quantized it all is and the minimum time to make a plot versus how long it's likely to last. So it's possible a K31 or K30 could have worked. And those would have made, 100 gigabytes or 25 gigabytes as the minimum plot size instead of 100 like we have now. However, if you fill up a whole drive with K30s, that would actually be a lot of seeks that you're doing at that point. And also, mostly we wanted this to be pretty future-proof, that we have high confidence that it's going to be a good long while till we're really concerned about grinding attacks and the whole thing. And so we set it to K32 as a sweet spot that's fairly acceptable as a minimum size and quite future-proof against needing to be canceled at any time in the immediate future. There's a lot of places where there's magic numbers all over our code base Almost all of them, thankfully, have been iterated on a bunch of times now, and we have a pretty good idea what we're doing with them. And they're nice and mature. So that's been nice that we've been on this. This project we could have launched something a lot sooner if I had been okay with much lower quality of product, but I wasn't. So we have a lot of things that are actually set pretty well. And the thing that you don't see yet is actually there's been a lot of work done on Chialisp, and that is actually pretty mature and way ahead of everything else in terms of its like whole approach to on-chain programming.
So Bram, will Chialisp stay pretty static from here? You know, what's it like now?
So there's two, excuse me. There's two layers to the whole thing. There's the CLVM, and then there's Chialisp. So these are comparable to, in Ethereum, you have the EVM and Solidity. So you can iterate on Chialisp all you want, right? There's no rules saying you can't have just any other programming language that compiles down into CLVM and write in that. CLVM is pretty baked in stone at this point. That is not changing anytime soon. Even doing soft forks for it is likely to be pretty painful at this point, but we think it's pretty mature, and there isn't actually going to be much of any call for soft forks in it anytime soon. I mean, there's things that there could be, but they're likely to be like really crazy zero knowledge things that are likely to happen once the state of technology and zero knowledge is a lot more subtle than it is right now. That continues to get a lot of stuff happening. So yeah, CLVM is very set, which is really great because stuff that you write today is going to keep working until the end of time, as long as your wallet software continues to support it. Chialisp proper, we anticipate we'll keep getting lots of improvements to it. And the set of libraries and toolchain for that is going to continue to improve quite a bit. It's at the point of being kind of usable now, but not even vaguely of the same level of maturity as you're used to for regular programming environments, because there just hasn't been the same scale of development happening in it.
So there's questions about how we're going to get adoption and those sorts of things, and I'm going to take that. Chialisp is live today. It was live on testnet before, but now this is the final gold version, and what you build on testnet runs on mainnet as well. I tell a lot of people that first you have to build a better blockchain with smart transaction platforms. Then you get the chance to start evangelizing what Chia can do. That starts today, but it's probably not going to start today. I think there's going to be some celebration this afternoon. We've already been in discussions with national governments and banks and others who want to use Chia and Chialisp to do strategically necessary things. They are now going to get a chance to start playing with it for real. A lot of folks didn't really want to invest until they knew it was gold and baked and done, and that is today. But first, we've got to go build a good developer ecosystem. I see the grassroots of that already in our communities. And, we apologize. It literally right this second is Matt can get you better documentation for Chialisp or pools. So right this second, pools is going to be a little higher. That'll stop here very shortly. And as you might imagine, we're about to extend the headcount considerably. So those sorts of things aren't the problem anymore. One thing I also tell a lot of people, Bram and I are not in a rush. This is a rest of our lives project. And so we want to do it right. We want to be able to, get developers on board, not have them waste time, have them learn what we're doing. Everyone is win exchange, win coin. No, don't care. Yes, this is going to be a big project. Yes, it's going to be important. No, we're not a rush about it. No, I don't want you to go out there shilling it. I want you to tell people that it is actually a project that may very well change how the entire financial infrastructure works. That's what we're here for. Mitch, I'm going to put you on the spot if you're paying attention. When are we going public? Because, of course, when is the next question?
We will go public when all of the 1,000 forces that that are indicators of when a company can go public align. That could be this year, it could be next year. Capital markets, the volatility, the demand for certain types of industry, equities, global markets. There are a lot of things that we're looking at right now, as well as just getting a better signal from the SEC. We've been in touch with the SEC over the past couple of years and have tried to do our roadmap to correspond with their view of the right way to comply in a regulatory way with issuing tokens. And we think we are going through the front door, unlike many, many other digital currency companies. And so we are hopeful that we continue to have a good relationship with the SEC. If that all continues, sometime I would say in the next, call it 6 to 18 to 24 months is probably our expected horizon on when we would register as a 34 Act company with the SEC, but remains to be determined. You never know in public markets when the right time to do it is. So ears to the ground, and we will go public at the optimal time given all of those external factors.
So switching gears totally, what is the kind of our timeline for pooling? Are we going to release details or source? What are the steps?
What was that?
Well, the question is, what's our timeline? What should people expect? Are they going to see source code? Are they going to see, architecture documents? What's going to happen?
Oh man, gee, I we're putting out fires right now, so a little hard to say timeline on a bunch of things. I'm hoping by the end of this year to have a robust, healthy Chialisp developer community out there.
Okay. There are lots of questions. Can I really farm on a small ARM device? And the answer is, we're trying to make sure the Pi 4 can absolutely keep up. It's doing a pretty good job right now. And with the next release, I think it's going to be even better. It is very much our goal for older hardware and or newer, lower power hardware to be able to farm. And the only question is how many drives can you attach to it? And that's a question for you.
You can most definitely, in the strictest sense, you most definitely can, because you can run just the harvester on something really low power and have it connect to a full node that's running on a high power machine. And there's no limit to the number of the low power things that you can connect to a single full node that you're running.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it a high power machine. You could have a 4 or 5 year old gaming PC that would run Node trivially.
Yeah.
So people are asking about how smart contract development going along. The answer is it's all out there. We've disabled some of the advanced wallets just because there were some GUI bugs that we did not want to try to stamp down yet. Those will be coming right back, and we'll be expanding that once you guys get documentation. The Chialisp documentation is the next high priority around Chialisp and the smart transaction environment. Everyone wants us to predict price or pools. We don't know where. We don't know how high or how low. It's a market. We'll figure it out together. Here's a fun one. What do you think netspace is at the end of May?
Boy, that's such a long time in the future. I think right now, let's see what's Chia Explorer saying. So if you assume that we're on a linear growth trajectory, it's this really weird thing looking at it, because like a super exponential growth trajectory winds up looking an awful lot like a linear growth trajectory that just took off. It's extremely hard to project these kinds of things out. But looking at it right now, it looks like it's growing at just under 100 petabytes per day. So if even that linear growth rate continues, then let's see, that's going to put us around 300. It's around 3 exabytes by the end of May. So yeah, so by the end of May, there will likely be some continued acceleration there. So we'll probably be around the size of Filecoin at around 4 exabytes, if not substantially higher than that. You can't get much higher than that before you start hitting limits of just the amount of stuff that's out there. So we'll see how this goes. So like, we have no idea when this super exponential growth is going to hit some kind of a wall. But I think 4 exabytes by the end of May is a pretty reasonable projection at this point.
Sorry, all. So Richard or Matt, can either of you explain how a puzzle hash works and how to think about that? What is a puzzle hash?
It's the hash of a puzzle. Well, there's you can represent the Chialisp programs as trees, right? You know, we have first and rest. So basically, you can map everything out as first and rest, and then everything you traverse that and mark everything as whether it's an atom or a list, and that's prepended with, I think it's 0 or 1, but it might be 1 or 2.
Backing up just a little bit more for those who don't know Lisp who are listening in. In Lisp, there's only, in the extremely simplified type of Lisp we're using here, there's only 2 data types. There are concells, which is a pair of 2 things, which are basically references to other objects, or there are strings. There's byte strings, and those are the only 2 data types that exist in this world. So every piece of data is one of those, and every program that you can run is also represented using those. Hence, Matt talking about everything being a tree.
So, question from the community, Bram. What are the design and technical features of Chia that are still kind of open questions? What's the, open field questions that we're most interested in moving forward?
So, not going to be spending nearly as much time on the consensus algorithm moving forward. That is baked. It is done. We shipped it. Going to be working on further improvements on our full node software. Going to be making our timelords faster and have slightly better logic on them. I'm going to be improving a number of aspects of full node protocol in various ways for both performance and security. But a lot of the emphasis is, in terms of having like a real whole community, is going to be on layer 2 stuff. Is going to be on, reviving some of these smart coins that we just broke because we were putting the final polish on Chialisp and we didn't update all of our smart transaction stuff based off of that yet. Also, a bunch of them need some more polish, but going to be getting that, getting our prototypes, or in some cases standards for these things up and running, and getting a community of people who understand these things and can do development for them, on top of all the other basic meat and potatoes of getting like hardware wallets to support us, getting listed on exchanges, getting all that basic stuff going.
One question that I'm just going to quickly handle on our new pooling protocol, plotting to a smart coin, can we still self-pool? And the answer is yes. In fact, we're probably going to launch it that way initially so that you'll be making new plots to your smart coin, but to your self-pool, and then later you can switch it to another pool. Bram, could you answer the question of why does it take a moment to switch between pools?
This is a security thing. So we want it to be that pools don't have to audit people who join the pool. We want to make it so pools could just let anybody join the pool without having to particularly trust them, and are designing everything for that. As part of that, it's very important that someone not be able to join a pool and then sit there collecting their partials, and then when they actually win a block, go, oh, hey, I'll just keep that for myself and leave the pool, right? Or more to the point, leave the pool and then claim the rewards. So in order to make that not be able to happen, there needs to be this state whereby something is keeping track of this thing is a member of this pool right now. And in order to leave that pool, it needs to give some amount of lead time saying, hey, I'm leaving this pool. And the pool can still claim any block rewards that you get during that time interval for itself, specifically so that people can't do this attack where they, pretend to be a whole lot of little farmers joining the pool. And then every time any one of those little farmers wins something, it just heads out and keeps the rewards for itself. So in order to make it so you don't have a trusting relationship here, we are building that smart coin functionality.
So in Chialisp and on our chain, are there applications that can be done in Chialisp that are either hard or impossible on other on-chain programming environments?
Yeah, so a bunch of this hasn't been done yet, but I've been putting together notes about how to do things, and we've actually been building things. There are two things that really come to mind here in terms of things that we can do. And it has to do, well, let's say there are three things that are big advantages that we have that are extremely painful to do in other things. Now, in principle, Solidity is Turing complete. You can do anything in it, but trying to do these things in it basically turns into writing a Chialisp interpreter that is written in Solidity, doing things in that, which in principle works, but yeah. So the three things are, so the three things are, number one, interoperability. When everything is a coin, it's kind of like, in Unix, everything is a file. When everything is a coin, everything interoperates. Everything can talk to each other. Things can be given permissions, talk to other things, have all kinds of power. That results in things like our colored coin implementation actually allows you to have smart colored coins. All the kinds of smart functionality you can write in terms of fancy custody arrangements and singletons and all that stuff. You can make colored versions of all of it. Works fine. Then we also have non-interactive aggregation. So that means that allows for things where you can have, truly decentralized exchange. So someone can make an offer saying, I want to trade this amount of Chia for this amount of this colored coin. And they're willing to do this if someone will take the other side of this trade. And so they make a partial transaction, which burns a bunch of Chia, just lights it on fire, and prints a bunch of the colored coin at the same time. And these are stapled to each other. Now, this is not a valid transaction because you can't just print colored coin, although you can burn Chia. That actually turns into a transaction fee if it just happens by itself. But what then happens is anybody else out there in the world, like you can take this partial transaction that you made and send it to an exchange, email it to a friend, post it on 4chan, wherever you want to make this offer. And then people who are out there can say, oh, I want to take the other side of that offer. And they can actually make something that like prints a balancing amount of Chia and burns a balancing amount of the colored coin and smush these all together. And this is now a valid transaction that they can introduce to the blockchain it will go through. And in fact, people who have a whole set of offers can market make. They can, without interacting with it, the people who made these things, smush them all together and even take a spread in the process of doing this. This is really great functionality that you just don't get if you're doing like ERC20 tokens. And then there's a kind of more subtle thing when you're getting into more advanced functionality, which has to do with all of the transactions that happen in a block happen simultaneously, which sounds like a really subtle point, but it provides a bunch of really good defenses against minor extracted value. So if you have like a price oracle in something, it can only announce one price per block. So a miner who's trying to mess with things can't make one price and put some things through and move to another price and put a bunch of other things through. They're stuck at one price per block and are limited in the amount of messing with things they can do because of that restriction. And obviously, if There's no, if everything happens simultaneously, there's no ordering at all. Miners can still withhold things and introduce their own things into blocks. That's fairly inherent, but their ability to attack the system is significantly reduced thanks to this really nice feature.
I just wanted to point out that we got up to about 3,500 simultaneous viewers between Zoom and YouTube. And it's tailing off a little bit. It's a little after 11. We'll probably take one or two more questions and I think wrap up and get back to giving you guys a slightly better new release later this week. The trade tab is hidden temporarily because of the issues around some of the colored coin implementation bugs. We'll get that back out shortly. How do networks recover from 51% attacks, Bram?
Yeah, so networks recover from 51% attacks in general by actually 51% attacks, interesting enough, do happen in the wild. There was one of the proof of work coins recently, which somebody rewrote 200 days of history, which is really a wow, that's really making a statement right there. But the way networks recover from 51% attacks is more power comes online that's not attacking the system. So whoever was attacking it gives up, and or other people come on and provide more power and are behaving honestly, and whoever it was doesn't have 51% anymore and can't do it. That's just sort of the nature of the beast.
And how do proof of stake coins recover from 51% attacks?
Yeah, they kind of don't. Proof of stake, if someone's 51% attacking proof of stake and they don't want to give up their 51% attack, there is diddly you can do about it. You are stuck forever.
Serving the medium rare glass of wine.
Yeah.
One of the sillier questions is, are there staff devoted to the task of adopting Chia in the financial industry? And, oh yeah, anyway. Also staffing up further. So trying to see if there's any other questions that are relevant for right now. You know, I will answer the ones everybody always has. When exchanges, we either don't know or can't tell you. More don't know. There are some exchanges that have listed and publicly talked about it today. People are like, vision for price. We don't have a vision for price. We have a vision for adoption. We're building a tool that is going to be able to, you know, reform, revitalize, and fix high finance and low finance. And we're very focused on that. Bram, anything else after this historic day?
Yeah, we cannot vouch for exchanges' ability to do integrations on any particular timeline, even if they were letting us talk about it. So yeah, exchanges will happen. And we'll see what happens with price. I'm not going to feel comfortable talking about price until we're officially listed on a number of exchanges and their prices have converged. That's just my feeling about it. This has gone remarkably smoothly. Thanks everyone on the team for making this happen. This has been great. We've just been just sitting here, giving commentary, acting as, you know, announcers, calling the plays, and the software has just magically worked.
And that's a real testament to a lot of faces on here who spent a lot of very long days and nights working very hard to get it right.
With the exception of Justin, who's keeping our stuff running in real time as transaction as volume is increasing a lot. So
I have to give Arvid a little compliment. Things were so bad that Justin and I basically took untested code of his and ran it in production because it was needed, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah. Credit to Arvid. That was the first time I've ever launched code that I never even ran once. That was fun. We were like, we hope this doesn't break them more.
It's already pretty broken, so
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, everybody out there, please do upgrade to our latest version. Please do keep on a quick upgrade cadence for now, because we are improving the software very rapidly. We really wanted to get this out the door, so we did, but there's lots of improvements to be had in it.
I wish I could show you guys these graphs. It's like,
There are a ton of improvements, folks, and there's a lot of things that people are saying, you know, well, why aren't you doing X, Y, or Z? We pretty much know most of those things. Like, we know that you want to be able to turn parts of the GUI off. We know you want to pause and resume plots. We know almost all of the stuff. We want you to be able to use the web interface without Electron. We know. But
software product management is always kind of battlefield triage. You're always making painful decisions.
Yep.
We know, we're working on it. Everything's on fire. We're hiring more people. We're going to try to get to everything as soon as possible.
Yep. Also, you know, a lot of effort was put into the parts that can't change. So the consensus algorithm, Chialisp, you know, you don't yet have the documentation for Chialisp, but trust me that it is all now there, solid, well-tested. Some of the advanced features just started working this morning perfectly, and it's pretty cool to see happen. So, you know, really proud of the team. Let us all take a little break. We're still going to get you a 1.1.4, right, Bill? Losing track. This week sometime. And, you know, happy farming. Thanks, everybody. Great work.